Hey, and welcome to Razzball Radio for Thursday, July 3rd. I'm your host, Nick Capozzi. We are very happy to be on the Fantasy Sports Network and Cablevision now. What's up, Sky? It's Thursday, so we got you and Guru today, brother.
Yeah. Glad to see that you finally let me back on the show.
Well, listen, it wasn't that. First of all, on Tuesday we had Nando DeFino, so you get bumped for Nando, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Excuses, Nick.
actually, you know what happened was there was a vote by some of our fans, and they said that they prefer Holly do this segment going forward. So is she available?
She is available. I highly doubt she's going to be able to know how to pronounce WOBA though. So that's going to be an interesting show. We'll put it that way.
Well, okay, we're going to talk deep leaguers with you. Of course, if you ever have fantasy baseball questions, Sky is your guy at Sky_Razzball. I am at Nick Capozzi, NickCapozzi. Let's get deep. Starting with out in Oakland with Mr. Alberto Callaspo. Guy plays everywhere: first base, second base, third base. 6% owned in Yahoo. 4.6% Yahoo in ESPN. Can't we just round that up to 5?
Sure, why not?
All right.
I like to be statistically correct, Nick.
All right, talk to me about Mr. Callaspo, good sir.
It's kind of similar to, everyone used to love owning Ty Wigginton back in the day, and it wasn't just the power, it's that ability to kind of slide the guy around in your lineup wherever you need him, and being 3-position eligible makes Alberto very, very useful. And he was also recently named the starting primary second baseman for Bob Melvin there in Oakland. He's a switch hitter, so you don't have to worry about the weird platoons that Bob likes to impose on every single player in that roster. He will move up and down in the lineup. I've been seeing him bat second all the way down to 8th. But that's given the lineup and how strong it is. That just means maybe he goes 1 for 4 with a run versus 1 for 4 with a couple of RBIs. Basically since he can't return from maternity leave on June 16th, he's hit over 300, collected about 17 hits and 46 at bats. He's been on, and so the big thing is he's part of a great offense. So take advantage of that. 1 for 4 isn't sexy in the Houston Astros lineup, but it can be in Oakland where you get a run and a couple of RBIs out of it.
Yeah, fair enough. Plus, again, with that multi-position eligibility, it gives you a great advantage. You want to make sure you're getting those games started because that's where you miss it. You always hit your innings limit, but you don't hit those. So Caspo's a great get there. Talk to me about Alex Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley's long lost, no one's ever heard of him son. Alex Presley, 0% owned in all leagues, and both Yahoo and ESPN, and I kind of understand that. But the Astros have really been struggling in left field this year. They only have 8 home runs and 6 steals to go along with I'm sorry.
You know who they could use in Houston right now? JD Martinez.
Yes. Yeah, I still can't believe they dropped him. They didn't even give him a chance to work on show that his new stance was of use. But they've been rotating guys like LJ Hose and Robbie Grossman out there.
Hey, watch your language, brother. We're on television now.
Grossman and Hose, that's a great combo right there for you. But they've also rotated in Presley, and he's been the one that's outproduced them all. He is a left-handed bat. He will probably get rotated out against left-handed pitching, but he's a guy that if he can stabilize and stay in the lineup for a bit, a 270 average is attainable, along with a 10 to 15 home run pace and 20 steal pace.
All right, let's move along to Chris Chicken Parmalee, first base outfield, 1% owned in Yahoo, 0 in ESPN.
Yeah, and what I'd like to point out is that many Razzballers who play the RCLs, they don't realize when someone says a hot schmomato is out there.
Schmotato.
Schmotato.
This is your first day with Razzball, brother? Come on, Sky.
I don't even think you said it right. I'd like to hear Gray say it before I hear it from you.
It's a hot schmotato.
Anyway.
A little basil, a little balsamic vinegar, some crushed garlic. Mwah.
But basically, these baddie calls are sometimes called a 5th starting outfielder for a deep league roster.
Fair point.
And, I have zero faith that Chris does keep the job. But right now, the dude is hitting. And with Mauer going to the DL, and him hitting 487 over his last 12 games. He needs to be rostered in all deep league formats. His K percentage is over 23% at the major league level, and it's not any better this year. So this is definitely a ride him while he's hot. But if you're struggling to keep an outfield solid right now, especially in deep leagues, he's a definite pickup.
All right, let's go back to Houston, where the Astros are suddenly relevant. Who knew? Enrico, a.k.a. Kike Hernandez, 2%, or excuse me, second base, 0% in Yahoo and ESPN leagues. No one's got this guy.
Yeah, well, he just got called up on Wednesday. They sent Jonathan VR down for a powder. He was striking out a huge, 25% plus rate. Doesn't matter if you can hit home runs and steal bases. If you can't get on base to begin with, doesn't matter. He was sitting around 200. So they're kind of shopping around to help themselves out at middle infield. They're 2 years away from Carlos Correa and probably a year away from Delino DeShields. So, some people probably see this as middle infield depth. I see this as a guy getting his chance to prove whether or not he's rosterable and whether or not he gets a chance to start. He already has a home run. He hit that yesterday, and he was 2 for 2 the day prior. I think he's going to get his shot and his career minor league stats. They look slightly boring, but I've been able to. He doesn't look like a guy who's going to hit 20 home runs or steal 20 bases, but he could hit 10 to 15, steal 5, give you a really solid average. And I watched a little tape of him and his swing. It's very compact. He's not swinging for the fences every time. So.
All right, fair enough. We got about 30 seconds. I'll squeeze this guy in because he's Canadian. Pat Neshek. He's a reliever, 8% owned.
Yeah, sometimes our deep leagues, it can't always be about starters. You need help with your ratios, and Pat Neshek is definitely that guy right now. 32 Ks in 32 innings with a .083 ERA and a .55 WHIP.
Did you say 32 innings, or did you say 32 fantasy football drafts, 32 straight days, 32 NFL cities? Because you're joining us from Chicago to Denver, so Sky's going to be on board too. You can get your tickets at razzballtour.com.
32 and 32 and 32.
I love it. That's right. We are hitting the nation Sky. Listen, we were originally going to crash at Sky's place on the way up to Seattle, where we launched the tour August 4th, but Holly said no. So, but you will be, but you'll be joining us from Chicago to Denver. Again, get your tickets at razzballtour.com. Chance to win a trip to Vegas. Sky, thanks for joining us today on Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. And we're back at Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. I am your host, Nick Capozzi, joined on Thursdays by the Guru to play a little jam or cram. It is our buy-sell game. Guru at the Guru GS. What's up, brother?
Hey, Nick, how's it going today?
Hey, I am pretty good because there's some interesting names here in this jam cram list. Let's start with Mike Zunino, 21% owned. This guy was the 3rd overall pick in the draft a couple years back. Very good receiver, but also potentially a very good bat. He's still young, 12 homers, 32 RBIs on the year, but only a 2.23 average. Tell me, great Guru, what do you see? Because that's why we're here.
Man, when I'm talking about catchers, I always feel, I don't know, kind of dirty, like I'm a used car salesman or some sort of late night infomercial host.
Hey, but, man, that might be my new job pretty soon.
That's my dream gig. Frustrated with your catcher position? Lost Evan Gattis? Angry that you drafted Joe Mauer? We told you not to. Then go out and pick up Mike Zunino. I mean, he's had a great June, 19 hits, 5 homers, and 10 RBI. He certainly showed off the power this year. Like you said, he's got those 12 homers. That's more than Posey. That's more than McCann. That's more than Johnny Bench and Carlton Fisk combined this year. But like you said, he's hitting 230, and the K rate is 33%. But there's not a lot out there catcher-wise, and I'm one of those guys that streams at the catcher position. The Big Z is better than other options like, say, Salty or Przinski. And he's having a better year than more heavily owned guys like Jason Castro or Kurt Suzuki. When it comes to Zunino, it's a jam.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually like Zunino a lot. I have in some leagues that have a lot of keeper options. He's a guy I'm probably going to hold on to. Seattle's been a black hole for hitting the last couple of years. You've only wanted their starting pitchers. However, that lineup is starting to slowly come around, and I think there's an opportunity. I'm not going to throw out that Zunino might have a big second half, but with that said, there's definitely some upside there. Top prospect, third overall pick in the draft, and there was talk that he actually could have gone even higher that year, although he can't really step up too much from there. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. That is definitely a jam. Let us head over to the great state of Minnesota. Trevor Plouffe, 13% owned, 5 homers, 39 RBIs on the year. Why is he on this list, Mr. Guru?
Well, like you said, he's less than 20% owned. And, that position can be a little thin at times. Plouffe is fresh off the DL and needs to start hitting homers. I had him projected at 20-plus homers on the year. He's at 5 right now. The power potential is there. He might knock in 75, 80 runs. And there's some value if you're in a deep league or in a league of guys named Trevor. Otherwise, when it comes to Plouffe, it's a cram.
With the first overall pick in the Trevor League, I take Rosenthal.
Yeah, nice choice.
Hey, there you go. So we are cramming on Mr. Plouffe. It's hard to own the Twinkies this year.
Yeah, you're right.
Give him a couple years. There hasn't been a lot of talk this year about Miguel Sano because obviously he had the Tommy John, but before that he was arguably the top power bat in the minors. Of course, they got Buxton coming up soon. A lot of kids in that system, a lot of pitchers. So the Twins, once they kind of get through that cycle of bringing these young guys up, could be a real haven for fantasy ownership. But I'm with you. Plouffe is a cram at the moment. Matt Joyce is a funny player to own because obviously he's a platoony tune, 11% owned, 6 homers, 34 RBIs, hitting 271. His June looked good with 3 homers and 12 RBIs, but if you take that game out against the Orioles where he went 5 for 6 with a couple of RBI, it's not looking as good. So tell me, what is your insight into Mr. Matt Joyce?
Well, he ends up on the jam or cram list because he was one of the most added players. After that big series in Baltimore over the last week, he's hitting about 410, and the OPS is up over 1,000 in his last 22 at bats. Now on the season, he's hitting 270 with 7 homers. So almost half of his homers have come in the past week. He's a streaky hitter, and he's streaking now, but he's going to face some tough pitching the rest of the week. They're headed to Detroit, then they're off to Kansas City. I might stream him against a righty in a hitter's park, but other than that, this most added platoony tune is a cram.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. If every year it seems that Matt Joyce kind of sneaks his way onto one of my teams for a little bit when he is on one of those runs. But I'm with you. He is definitely, unless you're in an AL only or AL East only league, he is not a guy that you want on your team. Here is a guy I want on my team. He came up through the Rays system. I have been talking about this guy a ton the last 2 days between Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network and, of course, the Razzball Hot Sheet. We post that every day at razzballradio.com, by the way, and what it is everything to know about fantasy in about 3 minutes. And if you've been listening to that last couple days, you know that Han's ownership has shot up to 46%. This guy, all right, I want to give you some numbers here. In 27 2/3, 36 strikeouts, 1.95 ERA, 1.05 whip. He's a big guy, 6'5", 190. Got acquired by the Padres this offseason. My only concern is that in the minors this year, he only had 33 strikeouts in 38 innings, and last year he had 67 and 69. So I don't know that he's going to give you a 10K rate, but he is a legit pitcher, especially pitching at Petco.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, last week I think his ownership was about 32, 33%, and he's inching up there now. Every time I hear that name though, Jesse Hahn, I think of Jessica Hahn. Did you remember? You remember her?
Goldie Hawn or Han
which
Solo.
Makes me, Jessica Hahn makes me think of Sam Kinison, which makes me want to yell at people. But I'll refrain from screaming this. But Hahn, he should be owned in more than half the leagues. You were talking about the strikeouts there. Monday against the Reds, he only went 5 innings, but he had 9 Ks. And he's going to get the Giants on Saturday in San Diego, and you're going to be thinking that the old streaminator at razzball.com will be drooling over this one. Now, since being called up in the last month, he's 4-1. The whip is about 1. The ERA is under 2. That puts him in the top 10 pitchers for the last month. That's a jam.
Yeah, absolutely. Jam. Get him on your roster, and we'll give you a couple more Jammer Crams when we come back right after this. This is Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. Welcome back to Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. We are jamming or cramming with the guru. Let's talk San Francisco bullpen situation. Santiago Casilla is on the Jammer Cram list. Do tell.
Do we have to talk about the San Francisco closer situation?
As long as we're not talking about the Tampa or Anaheim situations, I'm good, because those I'm just out.
Yeah, there's close apocalypse happening all around the league. Sergio Romo, he's out, and it's the dreaded closer by committee time in San Fran. You may have to get out the magic 8-ball and the Ouija board for this one. But Jeremy Affeldt and Santiago Casilla, they're the 9th inning options. Casilla has a 1.17 ERA. I like that. Affeldt is pretty effective, too, even on righties. His ERA is about 1.3. Affeldt has 28 career saves. Casilla has, I think he's got about 40. So Casilla's been there. He's done it before. He's the guy I'd expect to get the chances there in San Francisco. But there's also Juan Gutierrez, and there's another guy out there in the bullpen, too. But my guess is that there's going to be some trade winds blowing through San Francisco Bay. Maybe think Jonathan Papelbon, maybe some Houston Street. And what do you think about Koji Uehara ending up on the Giants?
Wow, that's interesting.
That could very well happen. If I were adding one now...
Are you folding up the tent in Boston right now?
I think Boston is about ready to pack it in.
Interesting.
They got swept by the Cubs at Fenway.
Yeah.
But if you're going for that Sagnoff, you're looking for those saves in San Francisco, Casilla, he's had the job before. He's the guy to get.
You know what? I'm not going to argue with you, but I will just counter that. I don't know. It's a gut feeling. I think Jeremy Affeldt has a shot to actually wind up being the closer there. I think he'll get an opportunity. If he doesn't, then they might be talking trade.
I think I'm with you too. I mean, Affeldt righties are hitting about 218 off him. I mean, he's been effective.
Real quick here, Mookie Betts. We talked about him last week or 2 weeks ago when we jammed a cram. He had a pretty good night last night.
Sure.
He's going to get the time, especially if the Red Sox do pack it in for the year. I think he will get an opportunity. He had a 957 OPS in the minors. I like him a lot. He's only 40% owned, and I think he can give you Gregory Polanco type numbers, but for about 30 cents on the dollar. Are you with me on that, or am I on an island here?
Step away from the Labatt's, Nick. Are you still celebrating Canada Day?
I didn't get to celebrate. I was in here making a show, and I'll be here tomorrow on the 4th of July making a show.
In his red, white, and blue thong. Make sure you tune in. I'm a Mookie Betts fan. I'm a Red Sox fan. I saw Mookie play when he came up through the Portland Sea Dogs system. He's a great little player. I mean, he's really got it together. He's got the tools, but to call him a Polanco type to make that sort of impact, that's not going to happen. He's only had about 30-something games of AAA pitching. In my opinion, he needs more seasoning in the minors. He looks overwhelmed to me up here in the majors, and he's not a very good outfielder, which isn't his natural position. I kind of have the feeling that Mookie might get sent back to AAA for a little bit, and maybe we'll see him later on this summer. He looked good last night. Maybe he sticks around if the Red Sox do pack it in. We'll see what happens. But I think Betts is he's a couple years away.
Okay, listen, I know you watch a lot of the Sea Dogs as well as the Red Sox, so I thank you for talking me off that cliff.
You're welcome, Nick.
Absolutely. So you got plans for the 4th of You got plans for the 4th of July or what?
Is it hard for a Canadian to talk about the 4th of July? We'll be doing the usual thing: the grilling, the drinking, the blowing some stuff up. Find a small country to destroy. American stuff. There's a party around these parts here every 4th of July where they roast a pig and then they fire off the AR-15s. It's a swine and shoot.
Do they really call it that?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more American than pork and guns, my friend, and maybe some crystal meth. But yeah, swine and shoot.
Apple pie for dessert. Wowzers. Well, actually, this is going to be my first, man, what is it with me and the F's today? My first 4th of July in the United States, and living here in Phoenix now. It's amazing. There is a gun shop and fireworks shop on every second corner. So I got a feeling lots of stuff is going to get lit up this weekend. Of course, we will be doing a show tomorrow. It is all T-Hole Friday. Our female listeners and viewers have spoken. So we're going to have a whole show dedicated to T-Hole's delight and disgraces. Hide your women, hide your children. See, you didn't even have a response for that, Guru.
Put on your red, white, and blue thong, Nick. You're going to have yourself a time. Get the guy some Ritalin.
Speaking of getting lit up, you will be joining me, of course, across the nation as this August the 4th, Guru and I, as well as other members of the Razzball crew, including Jay Rong, T-Hole, Sky, even Gray. We're going to be touring across America, hosting 32 fantasy football drafts in 32 straight days in all 32 pro football cities across America. You can get your tickets at razzballtour.com. We are coming for you. It is Razzball's 32 and 32 and 32, powered by the Fantasy Sports Network. You ready for that, Guru?
Oh, man, that is going to rock. 32 cities, 32 days, 32 drafts, all the NFL cities. We get to meet all the Razzaholics out there. I'll be blogging the whole trip, sending out the Instagram photos and plenty of behind the scene pics on Twitter. So if we're gonna hit your city, make sure you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on out again. Tickets available at razzballtour.com. Guru at the Guru GS. Thanks for joining us again today and jamming or cramming with us. Again, we'll be back tomorrow. We will have a show on the 4th of July with T-Hole. And enjoy the long weekend, America. Thanks again for joining us today on Razzball Radio here on the Fantasy Sports Network.